Do not adjust your digital device. What you are about to see and hear may shock and appall you. Join our hosts as they encounter countless thrills, spills, chills, and hilarity as they explore the very weirdest in pop culture. The following media is so strange, so beyond the scope of what is normal, it will make you ask the question, why does this exist? Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Why Does This Exist? I'm Chris.
And I'm Rob.
We know it's been a little while. This is our 99th episode. We are one away. That's right, one away. One away from the big one. And my God, what a big episode it is. You'll find out when you find out, but it's absolutely tremendous. That being said,
It's huge.
yes, it's quite huge. It's huge in Japan. But this episode, we're going to be talking about a very interesting and unique cartoon that you may or may not remember in the early 2000s. It's... I think it still holds up, to be honest with you. I remember watching this on Saturdays, and I remember, not particularly it being my favorite cartoon, but it was just one of the ones that I just had to watch and was very compelled. Due to the title character that, oddly enough, was in a different universe in this and was famous for something else. We'll talk about it in a little bit. This episode is on Jackie Chan Adventures, just in case you haven't figured it out by now, and I didn't leave any good clues, so I'd be surprised if you did, other than when you read the title. Oh yeah, there's a title, so you would know what it is, now wouldn't you? Good job, Chris. Well, now that we've already started this off on the worst possible way, we are Why Does This Exist? We are a podcast that talks about the weirdest things in pop culture, whether it's a TV show like we're about to do, music like we have on several episodes, or artists or things like that, movies like we have also done in the past of any weird nature and anything like that, video games like we did with the Sonic episode recently, and just about anything else that you could really come to mind. If it exists, we've done it. And that's about it. There's a few ways that you can support us. That's by, one, going to our social media pages. We're pretty much exclusive to Facebook at this point. What even is X? I have no idea.
It's stupid.
Half the time, I don't know. I feel like if you put X.com, most of the time, people are going to think that you're searching for porn. I'm just going to put that out there, and I don't think that it'd be a crazy thing to say that X.com would lead to people thinking that you are a frequent porn user.
Well,
and what if you're at work? How many people are going to be at work getting, how many people in IT are going to get flagged with so many people going to X.com, or people accidentally going onto porn at work saying, oh my God, I was trying to go to X.com, but now here's this thing. What even is this? Oh no, I slept with my sister. Well, I didn't want this. But it's going to happen. And good job, Elon, for whatever it is that you decided to do that morning. I don't know. Anyway, you can find us on Facebook at Why Does This Exist pod, or where, just look for Why Does This Exist. You'll find the goddamn thing if you look hard enough, and if you're a true believer, you'll find it. But if you got it in your heart, and let's just say it grew 3 sizes this day, hopefully it's not a tumor, but let's just say that your heart grew 3 sizes that day, you go to the doctor, you get it checked out, it's not a tumor, and you're just thinking, oh, I should be a little bit more generous, I should spread the wealth. And oh, what's this? I like Why Does This Exist? There you have a new episode. That's good. That's good. These are good things. And so you head on over to patreon.com/, why does this exist, and you decide to give us some money. That's great. So you give us as little as a dollar or as much as you want, and we'll let you into the Discord server. You could just talk amongst yourselves. You could talk to us. We'll just have a bunch of wacky conversations going. We'll shoot the breeze. Maybe we'll bring you on for an episode if you've got a good enough idea and possibly enough knowledge on something. You can pitch us a few things. Maybe we'll take your idea. But not only will we do that, we'll also roast you on the show. Most people like to thank their patrons, but let's be honest, they hate their fans. Everybody who gives you a shout out and says, "Oh, thanks guys for your support so we can keep on doing this. Thanks to all the patrons. It really helps." They can't stand you. So we're going to be honest for once, and we're going to roast you. For example, our good friend Phil, who did not spend, unlike our other good friend Phil, he did not spend 20 fucking years in the can and never compromised. No, instead, our friend Phil spent 15 on the side of the road on Route 3 and broke down crying immediately when the cop approached him to tell him he was speeding. He compromised instantly. What a disgraziato this man is. I'm disgusted. I can't even think. That animal. I can't even say his name. That's something like what you would hear. If you find it in your heart, as black as it is, to cough up some money and give it to us. And maybe, just maybe, we'll buy some new upgrades, some new microphones, and some new gear for the podcast studio. But we're honest men on an honest show. We're gonna buy drugs, and lots of them, with all of your money. So that's the news. Here's the weather. You are now about to witness the strength of street knowledge from a ragtag group of rogues, so let's get on with the goddamn show. Take it away, maestro. What is Jackie Chan Adventures?
So, Jackie Chan Adventures is an interesting... It's a show from a time there in like cartoon history where like every single franchise there was had to have a cartoon associated with it. Like this basically started in like the late 80s and went on through like the early 2000s. But it got like really prevalent in the late 90s, like to the early 2000s. Like you had shows like the Men in Black cartoon series, the Godzilla cartoon series that was based off of the 1998 Godzilla film starring Matthew Broderick. You had The Mummy had its own cartoon series. I think, I don't know if the X-Files I don't know if a lot of like shows just like and franchises just randomly had to have cartoons.
I'm not sure if the X-Files did. I feel like I saw something. I know Men in Black was definitely a thing because I love that show.
Yes. So
no, I think you're right. I think it was.
Oh, well, there you go.
They were trying to do it. X-Files Albuquerque was supposed to be recent, actually. But yeah, I guess it didn't happen.
No, but there was a ton of them that it was.
The same
thing, though. Basically like all these different ones, and basically, so one of them, was. This one was unique in that it wasn't based necessarily off a movie. It was based off of like an actor, which was Jackie Chan, of course. Now, for those who don't know, I don't know how you can't know, but Jackie Chan was like probably one of the biggest action stars of the 90s. He was in like, he's a martial artist and actor from Hong Kong. And he, in the 90s, he was like, well, I mean, he's been doing movies for many, many years, decades. But like he really kind of like hit it big in the late 80s and really like kind of like throughout the 90s. He was in so many different action movies. You know, there was Shanghai Noon and Shanghai Nights, Rush Hour and Rush Hour 2,
Rumble in the Bronx,
Rumble in the Bronx, The
Police
Medallion.
Story,
Yeah, there was just it's so
Legend
many.
of Legend of Drunken Master is
Yeah,
one of my favorites.
Around the World in 80 Days, which was like what? Like it was just he was like in like you.
He did a lot of really odd ones, and I'm
Yes,
surprised that we've never done a Jackie Chan episode until now,
yeah,
because there are so many that are just, it's very weird, and like his style is everything is very situational, like not
yes,
just like, I mean, he's always brought into very strange situations that really don't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but his fight style is very unique because he uses elements of the background,
yeah,
and anything that he can really get his hands on, that is incorporated into whatever it is that he's doing and into his fighting. So it's very fluid, and he like it's almost like it's one it's almost like it's one synchronized motion
yes.
that he's doing.
Yeah, and it like you said, he uses a lot of like he'll use improvised weapons and stuff like that. Uh, like for example, perfect example, because the show Jackie Chan Adventures really like embodies this. Like it's a fictionalized version of Jackie Chan who's actually played by someone else. He's voiced by James C. But the actual Jackie Chan does make appearances in the show in these live action segments where basically like he answered questions about his life or about Chinese history, that kind of thing.
I mean, it was always like this very brief, like 1 minute thing.
Yes,
So like
it was at the end
he
of
didn't,
every episode.
and he kind of he kind of sort of answers the question, but like he barely, it's like not long enough to get a real explanation at all. Or like there's nothing that actually, like, he really doesn't give you very much information about anything, and also you can tell as soon as he opens his mouth that that the voice actor who's like voicing this Jackie Chan on the show does not sound at all like Jackie Chan.
No.
I mean, that is kind of for the better, because Jackie Chan he's never really been known for having impeccable English,
Yeah.
but he's like, his voice is also way too deep in real life and is very jumbled. His like his English is, it's not quite broken, but it's like, it's kind of like he's like stitching it together as he goes along.
He has a very heavy accent. Like he's
Yes.
it's clear that English is not his first language.
Yes.
Which is fine. But
Yeah,
like,
but it's just funny because he does not sound, because the actor does not sound anything like Jackie Chan.
No.
And I mean, I mean, when I was watching this, I really didn't remember the show as like 50 to 60% of every episode of the entire show is just Jackie Chan screaming.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
every episode, I mean, and that happens a lot in his movies too. During every fight scene, he's always yelling about something, or he's always like, "Hoo!" But in like, that's happened sporadically in the movies, but like in the show, this is like 60% of the program is just
Yeah.
him like getting into random fights with these people, and he's not an action star or anything in this, like you said.
No,
In
yeah.
the cartoon, he's an archaeologist.
Yeah. So he plays a
So-
fictionalized version of himself that's an archaeologist, which is like the most random thing ever.
Yeah, it's not like it's not like there's a backstory where he was already an actor and he was already world famous and he conquered acting and he decided to do something else with his time and money, and then he decided archaeology might be a cool thing where he would be able to use those martial arts skills because he'd already have them. In this, he just was always an archaeologist who happens to have this martial arts skill, and everyone wants to kill him all the time.
Yeah. Well, specifically because so he stumbles upon this in the first episode, this shield, which happens to contain the real actual valuable thing is the talisman that's like stuck in the middle in this little indent. And we find out later on as the time goes on that there's 12 talismans based off of the 12 Chinese zodiac animals, and they each imbue different powers in the wielder. So like the first one they find is the rooster, which gives like telekinetic abilities and like flight, basically.
Correct.
And each animal represents a different power, like invincibility and healing and all these different techniques that they can do. if they hold the talisman. I think later on they actually become real animals, and they actually have to like find and collect all these like magical animals, basically.
Yes,
In one of the later
that's in
seasons.
yeah, that's in the later seasons. Because the thing, well, I mean, I guess we could get to that. Let's just start at the beginning.
Yeah.
But like you said, he unwitting, like he's on one of his typical expeditions, and he comes upon he comes upon the talisman embedded into the shield. But he lives in San Francisco. Like he has a similar trajectory to the real Jackie Chan, but he just happens to be an archaeologist instead. Like he moved from Hong Kong to San Francisco, which happened in real life.
Yes.
But he lives with his uncle, who we don't really know his real first name.
Yeah, he's just Uncle.
Everyone just calls him Uncle. So Uncle is Uncle. Makes sense, I guess. And he's a very he's a very stereotypical old wise Chinese man. But he's a lot of people's favorite characters on the show. He's my personal favorite character. And Uncle has a couple of different like catchphrases, but his main thing is just one more thing. And like he just keeps adding on all of like this extra wisdom. And Uncle is also a renowned archaeologist he's not really an archaeologist, but he sells a lot of these ancient artifacts, and he's an antique salesman.
Yes.
So like Uncle also knows his shit.
Yeah.
So Uncle is constantly researching all of these ancient archaeology books and these ancient artifact books, and he happens to know more about this than it seems like anyone else on the planet, because there is also the CIA agents, or whatever you want to call them. I forgot what the name of them. Sector 13. That's what it is.
13,
yeah, which is basically the FBI, CIA, whatever you want to call it, government agency that is also trying to get their hands on these artifacts to like make sure that they're in a safe place and they never fall into the wrong hands.
Yeah. They're trying to. So the main antagonists of season 1, and like throughout the seasons, but like they're really like the main of season 1 until like the bigger, badder guys come out later on. But it's the Black Hand, which is a criminal organization controlled by this guy named Valmont.
Why is it always a hand with these guys?
Yeah, I know.
Every single comic book bad
Ninja
guy
Turtles
thing.
It's the Foot Clan. So
yeah, it's like, what is up with the body parts? Do you have to name it? Like, does every like top heel faction have to be called? Well, look, no pun intended on the heel and the Foot Clan thing.
Their heels. So
why do they have to all be named after body parts? And half the time it has to be a black version of the body part. I don't understand what it is. There's no reason why it would make anything intimidating, except for Lord of the Rings, where Saruman's thing is the white hand.
Yeah.
Of Isengard, but that's separate altogether. That's not even in this century.
Yeah.
But I never understood that. It's always got to be a body part. Most of the time it's the hand, and more often than not, the color that they choose is always the black. It's always the black hand, the black foot, the black heels, the black crows, the black keys. There's something about these secret organizations. Why does it have to? Yeah, like Kitten should be a little bit more original with this. Why couldn't it just be the crayon box or something like that? Who would suspect that? Who would suspect the crayon box to be an evil syndicate? And most of the time, if they walked into the bar and they would say, here it is, courtesy of the crayon box, and people would laugh their asses off thinking that it was hysterical, and they open up this like crayon box that's their calling card, and there's like severed fingers in it, then wouldn't that then? And they have different colored nail polish on this. You could tell I thought this through.
Well, it's clearly, it's
that's a lot more intimidating than the Black Hand would be.
These organizations, they always have like these like names that's like clearly sinister. It's like, okay, it's like, oh, we're gonna go down to the patent office and trademark our the name for our company. Oh, what's your company called? Oh, the Black Hand. Oh, okay. what do you do? Oh, we're like a criminal. It's like clearly you're a criminal organization. Like, it's like how can you be any more obvious? Like,
Yeah, it's waste. Oh, it's waste. It's waste and waste management.
yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah,
And so basically, and also for some reason, this like feared criminal organization happens to employ the dumbest henchmen in the world,
oh, yes,
and they're also bad shots. So it's like I don't understand. Did they all get comfortable at the worst possible time in their careers? Did they peak too early? Like, why is it that every single time these bad organizations just get beaten by like two people?
Well, you got to think too.
It makes no sense.
They always have like it's always like this huge It's got to have to be some
And
kind of
they
huge
summon
organization.
shadow ninjas.
Well, that's the friggin' like dragon statue guy.
Yes, they worship this dragon statue guy named Shendu, who is a who is an evil dragon sorcerer demon thing that's trapped into this artifact, and Shendu is the guy. Shendu is who Valmont answers to, and Shendu needs the talismans in order to be restored back to his original form. So
and
that's the whole point of why the Black Hand is going after him.
I think eventually, like, I don't know if he actually becomes his original form, but doesn't he
He
like
does.
at one point he possesses Valmont or something?
Something like that. In the series finale, he does become his true form because he has to fight his son, who is set free from the demon prison or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't watch the whole series, obviously, but I pretty much watched the first and last episodes of every season, which there are 5. That's way more than I remembered.
Yeah.
And I was also surprised that there was a very well written linear plot for a children's cartoon. Obviously, it wasn't the work of Shakespeare, but it was like pretty damn good for a kid's show.
Yeah, and also it had some pretty funny moments too. Like it wasn't like stupid. Like, you know, a lot of these shows kind of were just like cashing in on like, you know, famous people or like movies or whatever, and like weren't really well written and weren't really funny or anything like that. It was like a baseline level of like, okay, it's okay, but it's not the greatest. This was actually very well written and like had some good jokes in it, and you know, was also really like visually appealing too. Like it has kind of a stylized art style, like a little bit like you know, the main like characters and stuff are fairly detailed and but like, you know, like cartoony, but like, you know, they look like regular people kind of.
Yeah.
But then like the backgrounds are kind of like these like stylized, like, you know, very like basic kind of like backgrounds, which like in a good way, like they're very like this, you know, it almost looks like an artwork or like, you know, like a painting or something like that is, you know, that they did for the background. So it's actually like really good, you know, animation. And I'm sure like partially they did it to like save money, you know, because they use like a lot of like monotone colors and stuff like that, and like, but like it looks good. It doesn't look bad. It looks just like stylized and stuff, which is really cool.
Right. I mean, it is kind of weird because it is almost like a painting, and like the background, it's almost like a painting, but also like someone just like drew over it with like MS Paint, and that's for the background. But for the foreground, it's like well drawn, like comic book. Like it's like a comic book.
Yes. Yeah, I would say it's very comic book-esque. It's like a comic book come to life.
That was the first thing that I noticed, and then Jackie Chan started screaming.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it because it meshes well together. I mean, it is just like the pages of a comic book, and that's kind of how the show moves, because the show is very fast-paced. There's always a million things going on, and it's just... And the contrast between all of the character... Like, the dynamics between the characters and, like, they all play off of each other really well. And it's never, like... It's never awkward, or it's never like, it doesn't feel like a forced thing. It like it moves pretty smoothly because like Jackie, everything is always like, he's always like anxious, and like because something's always like going wrong at the time, and he's very much a pessimist in every situation,
Mhm.
and he's always constantly moving. Like he can't sit still. His niece Jade, who we did not quite get to yet, but we're getting to her now. Um, his niece, she's like, I don't know, I think she's like 11 or 12 years old or something like that at the start of the show.
Yeah.
She like kind of just shows up at Uncle's place because she's like a juvenile delinquent, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of like a Fresh Prince of Bel Air situation a little bit.
Basically, and they're just like, all right, like her parents basically were like, we can't do anything with this kid. Just ship her off to San Francisco and let Uncle deal with her.
Yeah.
And Uncle, who, as I was getting to, seems to know more about everything than even the CIA or Sector 13, is just like, okay, whatever, go be useful and like just work in the shop. And
Mm-hmm.
and Jackie's just kind of like, yeah, just listen to Uncle and like get away from me. But she, of course, is like right there every time, surprising him, and she puts him into a state of panic. Jade is very calm, cool, and collected. Uncle is, but like Jade is, she's a kid, so she's also pretty hyper and like wants to like explore and go on adventures and stuff because she's a kid. She's curious. It makes sense. And Uncle is always very calm, cool, and too collected. He like very rarely freaks out about anything unless he's yelling at somebody who like because they didn't listen to him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's usually because they like didn't dust an antique properly or something like that.
Yeah.
Like Uncle is more concerned with the business than anything else.
Yeah.
But we won't. But that's about the main characters, and then we have one of the. And then there's like the three henchmen in Valmont and Shendu, and the three henchmen, they're pretty much all idiots. And then they have the big bad. They have the huge like muscle guy Toru, who ends up defecting and becoming like and
He
joining
becomes a good
like
guy.
Jackie Chan's side,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he like helps Uncle out in the shop, and he becomes friends with him.
Yeah.
And they also have a bunch of like recurring characters that help, other than Section 13. There's also I forget her name. She's like Viper. That's her name. She's like a jewel thief or something, like the world's greatest thief. And then you have El Toro Fuente, who is a professional wrestler and like basically a Mil Mascaras larger than life guy, who is kind of like he's kind of like he's an interesting contrast to Jackie because he's similar in that he is well respected in what he does, but he embraces it and he enjoys the spotlight, where Jackie like can't stand it and just wants to be normal basically, or wants to have the archaeological life that he used to have. And you also have El Toro Fuentes, his nephew Paco, who is pretty much Jade as a boy.
Yeah.
So it's you have that too, and it's like it's like a fun little dynamic.
Yeah. Then of course you have the villains. We've already spoke about Valmont. There's also Daolon Wong, who became the main antagonist in the third season, and he was he was a recurring character in 2 and 4, but he was voiced by James Hong, which was, that was cool because, James Hong was like always like in so many things, so it was like,
I mean, he's been in everything, and I'm glad that he finally got an Oscar this year for Everything Everywhere All at Once. I mean, he has the most credits to his name.
Yeah.
Than any actor. He holds the Guinness World Record for that, and I mean, is he in his late 90s, James Hong?
He is
I think he's 90s. Okay, I thought he was 96, but
Yeah,
my
94.
God. Still working.
I mean, like an illustrious career, like unbelievable, and
Yeah, like what is what does he have? More than 500 credits or something like that?
it's like it's a lot. It's a lot. Let's see. Let's take a look on IMDb real quick. He has 456 credits as an actor.
Wow. He has played over 600 television and film roles. Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
How? How can you do so many?
I mean, just he's been acting for literal decades, so
I know, but
and so many
oh
like
my
great like
God.
appearances too. Like Big Trouble in Little China, which I did we I don't even remember. Did we?
No, we never did that.
We have to do an episode on Big Trouble in Little China because it was like
Yes.
it is one of the greatest cult films ever made, and I love that movie. And I remember like when I first saw it, I was like, how is this a John Carpenter movie? This is like one of the weirdest movies I've ever seen. And it's amazing, but it's just like that. This is like a movie we have to do because it's just, it's that level of awesome.
Yes.
Um,
I agree. I haven't seen it in a really long time.
yeah,
Probably I was probably like 13 or something when I saw it, so I really have very little memory of it, so I have to
oh
watch
yeah,
it again.
yeah, you gotta watch it. It's amazing. It's such a great cult film. Like it just has that feel to it, It's like it's one of those films that you watch on like a rainy Saturday morning when you can't go out and do anything and you're just like stuck inside. It's like, oh, let's like put on like Big Trouble in Little China. It's like randomly on the TV somewhere and you just watch it, It was one of those movies, like just you could just like sit down and just like friggin' vibe to.
Oh yeah.
But and a lot of ways it was like there's like movies like that like kind of feel like the Saturday morning cartoons. Like that is like one of those movies that feels like a Saturday morning cartoon. Similar to like obviously like Jackie Chan Adventures, even though it's a show, it is like you get that same vibe from it. It's like like very like just like it's fun to watch. It's kind of like a cult following. It's not like hugely popular, but it's like one of those things that it's like it becomes kind of like a core memory from when you're a kid watching it, just like chilling and watching something like that. And Jackie Chan has that or Jackie Chan Adventures has that same exact vibe. And I'll honestly, a lot of Jackie Chan's movies have that same vibe,
They do.
It's just like got this like nostalgic factor to it.
Yeah, I mean, you could just you kind of can enjoy yourself throughout it because you know what to look for in a Jackie Chan movie. You're not
Exactly.
like you're not concerned about the acting. You're not even really concerned about the plot. You're kind of just want to see how crazy he's gonna get with the action sequences and what he's gonna do next.
It's just fun. It's like pure fun, and that's it.
Yeah. But anyway, the show came like Jackie Chan Adventures like it. This kind of came to be just because Rush Hour was getting big and just Sony Pictures was like, they just started shopping around the idea and he was like, hey, let's just do a cartoon for like about the weird things that like happen in Jackie Chan movies. Let's just do a cartoon on Jackie Chan. And they were like, and this fellow named Andy Kaplan was he was the VP of Sony Pictures and he was like thinking, okay, well, like we should probably do a cartoon. So he got the idea and he told the Sony's head of family entertainment, Sanders Schwartz. Sci-Fi actually has a great article about this, and they actually do really good content and great documentaries. We've said that about them before, but they've kind of covered everything. But Schwartz is telling him, and he's like, okay, well, what is it? And then and the guy was the guy was like, oh, I don't know. You're like, you're the guy who's in charge of animation. So like, you just tell me what the show is. Like, we're just going to do, like, we're doing a Jackie Chan show. So, you're the animation guy. So like, why don't you figure out the show? And he was like, gee, thanks. Okay. So they're trying to figure it out. And he like, just really like, didn't really have like much of an idea, and he was kind of kicking it around, and like the pitches were like the person that like kind of like thought this up was this guy John Rogers. He was like he was a comedian, and he was a big like Hong Kong like kung fu buff, and he was like, oh, there was a movie that Jackie Chan did called Armor of God in 1986 where he's a treasure hunter. So he was like, why don't we just do that, but like make it a TV show? And they were like, okay, like what the hell? Why not? Let's do it. So they start like going through like the various episodes and everything, and like Sony buys it, and they like put it together, and they're like, okay, well, we should probably like get Jackie Chan involved in this, like somehow. We should like call him up and see if he wants to do this. So they're like, so they get the idea in there, and they like kind of call him up, and they're like, oh, hey, Jackie, do you want to do this? And he was kind of like, yeah, I guess so. I don't really see why not. But like when they were pitching it, they also wanted to throw in like they also wanted to throw some stuff in there too, because like they didn't know what else was really in there. There were two producers, Jeff Klein and Dwayne Capizzi, and they both were also Jackie Chan fans too. So you had three people who actually gave a shit about the person that it was about. Good start. You had people that had an idea that obviously was a good one. It worked, basing it off of something that they saw in a Jackie Chan movie. So people could even like, if you're looking at like his like older, deeper cut movies that don't really get talked about a whole lot, you could check out Armor of God. Or if you're watching Armor of God, then you're like, oh wait, this is just like Jackie Chan Adventure. Well, there you go. And they were like, and like they didn't know what else to do, because they were like, well, what do we do? Like, okay, he's Indiana Jones basically, but like what else? But like Dwayne Capizzi was like a big fan of like horror movies and like campy horror movies and stuff. So he like, so he gets this like movie called, he gets this like this horror, this like comedy horror movie thing called like A Chinese Ghost Story. And then he was also a fan of like Sam Raimi stuff, so like Evil Dead and everything. We've talked about Evil Dead on this podcast before, in the episode last year. Check it out. And he decides, okay, let's just put the supernatural element into this, and that's where it really came together. But when they were pitching with the networks, like they weren't really like figuring out like they like, it was pretty easy for them to slot. I knew the pitch meetings were like weird, because like they had Jackie Chan like come in during the pitch meetings, and they had him like doing stunts. I mean, it's Hollywood. I don't know how that works. I'm sure it's interesting. If you've heard anything, it's usually weird. So this doesn't surprise me at all that they were like, hey, Jackie, just come to the pitch meeting. Also, can you just do a bunch of stunts while we're pitching the show to help? It'll really help sell it.
Yeah.
Which that makes no sense to me, but I guess in that world, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't know why you would put the man through this. What if he gets hurt and he like can't do a movie because he was pitching a show, and then the show never gets sold? Good job, idiot, for thinking about that. Like, good going, asshole. Yeah. But anyway, he like, so first some networks passed, and then eventually they brought it to like Kids WB, where it obviously stayed. And they really just like, they were just trying to like figure out what to do with their time slots, because Kids WB had Pokemon, and they were like, well, Pokemon is the hottest thing in the world. So, yeah, like, we already have the number one show for the number one thing. So my job is easy. I just have to build a schedule around that. The fellow who was operating, the lady who was operating this at the time, Donna Friedman Mayer, she was like, it was super easy. Like, it didn't, like, honestly, it didn't really matter what other shows were on the block, because they had Pokemon. They were going to get the butts in the seats for Pokemon no matter what. Yeah. So, like, she probably had the easiest job in the world, where it was just, okay, well, what else can we throw? It, like, Pokemon goes on at 4 o'clock. So, or like on Saturday, it goes on at 10, let's say, or 11. What can we do to fill in the blanks between like anything from 9 a.m. or 7 a.m. through 11? Let's just throw stuff in there. And let's see what can go on at like and let's see if we could put something on at 11:30 since they're there, just to kind of hold them. So it was super duper easy for like once they got the network, and they happened to land on the perfect network that could just do like really. It did not matter what time slot this had because it was on with Pokemon. Like anything during that era, you were gonna win.
Yeah.
Like that was probably the network that you wanted to be on. Also, because Kids WB, it not only had that, but it had Animaniacs, it had Pinky and the Brain.
Yeah.
It had
great.
Batman the Animated. Wait, did it have Batman the Animated? Yes, it did have Batman
did.
the Animated series. So like you couldn't
It had
really lose.
It had all the WB.
Yeah.
Or all the DC animated shows were on WB at some point. They had Static Shock, Superman the Animated Series, Teen Titans,
the Batman Superman Adventures. Like honestly, you couldn't lose on that network.
No.
If you had that, it was either that network or Nickelodeon, because Cartoon Network was gonna like do great no matter what. Like those three networks.
Well, Cartoon Network also was owned by the same company. Like I think Warner Brothers owned also Cartoon Network. So a lot of the shows that were on Kids WB ended up in syndication on Cartoon Network.
That's true.
Including Jackie Chan Adventures at some point, I believe, was in syndication on one of the Cartoon Network blocks, either Toonami or something else.
Yeah, which I mean, it didn't really matter to Warner Brothers, but like
exactly
if you were like the networks that you wanted to be on were Cartoon Network, Kids WB, and Nickelodeon. If you had a show on those, then you were gonna win.
For me,
it didn't matter.
Kids WB was my Saturday morning cartoon block. Like that
was for me too.
That was like it couldn't compare. Like I wasn't really a Disney kid, so I didn't watch ABC's One Saturday Morning really. You know, I liked some Disney things, but like I wasn't like huge into it, so like I didn't really like watch any of the Disney shows on that.
Well, we really didn't have a choice because we didn't have cable.
Yeah.
We didn't have cable until I was like at the end of middle school. I was about maybe 13 or 14 when we finally got cable, and like we got like the hot box. I believe the statute of limitations has run out on that one. And who didn't have a hot box?
Yeah. We had cable, but even then I still watched the network cartoon, like the Saturday morning cartoons on WB, because it was like the premier ones. Like they had, like you said, Pokemon, they had Yu-Gi-Oh! Dragon Ball Z was on Kids WB at one point. They had Transformers. They had
during the Beast Wars era.
Yeah, they had
which has not aged well.
No, it has not. What else? They had, X-Men Evolution, which was a freaking amazing show.
That show was great.
It was so good.
It had the Men in Black show. It had the Mummy show. I mean, it had most of those spin-off shows that we talked about.
Yes.
It was they had Tiny Toons at one point, I believe.
Yes.
You really couldn't lose on that network.
No, they just had such a great lineup, and Jackie Chan Adventures just fit perfectly in that lineup. It was
and I mean, I also only the other thing was like, I mean, when we, like I said, we did not have cable, so our choices were way more limited. But it was really just either Kids WB or Fox, and Fox, you really only tuned in for the live action stuff. Like, to me, Fox was more of a live-action network, and it was, like, with that, you only really had Power Rangers, and you had Beetleborgs that, like, kind of filled the void of Power Rangers when, like, it became not cool to watch Power Rangers for some reason.
Yeah.
They had the Addams Family show for a little bit. They also had, I can't remember the other show that I was thinking of. Oh, they had Goosebumps, which I liked. But with Fox, like, you were really just going to switch specifically just to that one show, and then you were going to go back to Kids WB. Mm-hmm. Like, you weren't as locked in to Fox's Saturday morning lineup as you were with anything on Kids WB, and maybe Spider-Man too you would watch. But Spider-Man also came on Sundays,
Kids WB was also the only network, like of the main, the big networks that actually played anime on their
Yeah.
morning block. Like there really you couldn't find anime anywhere else except for Cartoon Network, which again was a Warner Brothers thing. So that was another cool thing to like that introduced a lot of people to anime because they had like the basic like like shonen animes like Card Captors and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon and Dragon Ball Z, and Sailor Moon. Like it was like these very basic like kids animes, but like it was a good like okay, like I like this, these Japanese cartoons, they're really cool. Where can I find more,
Yeah.
And you couldn't get that on any of the other networks. And
Yeah.
even the shows that were not anime necessarily, that were American shows, like Jackie Chan Adventures, like the Mummy Show, like the Men in Black Show, they almost had like an anime like feel to them, with the animation style. So it was almost kind of like, and like especially like Teen Titans, like that was like very clearly like an American anime, basically. So it was just like it was cool because it had like a different animation style that none of the like American cartoons had necessarily.
Right. And
Which
I
I
mean,
like.
just take a look at like here's the lineup of like what the shows were. September 2000, right? This is the September 2000
Yeah.
lineup for like Saturday on Kids WB. 7 a.m. was the Warner Brothers Kids Club, which was basically just like your curtain jerker of just classic Warner Brothers cartoons, and it was just various ones. The Slappy Squirrel Show, which I don't remember, but I didn't wake up that early. I
Yeah.
woke up for this. I 8 a.m. was Pokemon Adventures on the Orange Islands. I didn't even know that that's what it was called. I just knew it was Pokemon.
Well, no, that was
and
a later
it.
season. The original Pokemon was just Pokemon, and
That's what I thought. I mean, in
Yeah.
2000, but this I'm looking at 2000
2000s
when Jackie Chan Adventures debuted, which I don't
Yes.
even remember the Orange Islands thing.
That
I
was
just
when they
remember it
met
was
that
Pokemon
guy.
and that's it.
What was his name? It was Josh or something like that. He was like a photographer or some shit that joined them. I don't remember. It was like
That was the guy
Brock,
who you
like,
are in
left.
Pokemon Snap, basically.
No, it was but it wasn't that guy. There was a different guy that like was
Oh,
also something different. I don't know.
I
But he
really don't
like
remember that.
basically Brock left the show and they went to a different place. It
Well,
wasn't
that
like
part I do remember. I remember
yeah,
Brock leaving,
yeah,
which is just funny to say because it was a cartoon. They could just bring him in at any point. But
yeah.
I'm guessing maybe the voice actor like had other things planned, so they had to write him out for a bit.
I
But
think they just wrote him
I
out
don't
because they
know.
wanted to introduce a new character to like keep it fresh, basically.
I mean, that could be too. Anyway, so the lineup was 7 a.m. Warner Brothers Kids Club, 7:30 Slappy Squirrel, 8 to 9 was Pokemon, 9 to 9:30 was Jackie Chan Adventures, and what happened at 9:30 to 10? Pokemon again, and then at 10:30 was Generation O, which I don't remember that at all.
I don't remember.
And then at 11 to 12, once again, Pokemon. I didn't even realize that there was 3 hours of Pokemon crammed into that day in 2000. And then at noon was Secrets of Atlantis, which I don't remember, and Tales from the Mystic Woods, which I don't remember at all either. But you did also sometimes see at 11 o'clock, it was, this is kind of the one that I remember more, the August through September one, which was 7 a.m. Warner Brothers Kids Club, Slappy Squirrel, Men in Black, the series at 8. 8:30 Batman Beyond. 9 was Pokemon. 9:30 was Card Captors. I don't remember this at all.
I remember Card Captors.
10 was Pokemon again. Then 10:30 was Generation O. 11 was Batman Beyond, and 11:30 was Max Steel.
Yeah.
That I remember pretty clearly.
I remember Max Steel, yeah.
Or also like Static Shock, Batman Beyond, and Max Steel. Like that lineup, I kind of remember more.
I remember Cubix. That was another one that was around that time.
I vaguely remember Cubix.
But it was like one of those it was like one of those bad CGI shows, but like, back then we didn't know any better. That's
it
like
looked good at the time.
Exactly. Like that was like cool back then.
Yeah, but I guess the shows that I don't remember were probably the shows that I was tuning in to Fox for whatever live action show it was.
Right.
During that time. Because Fox because they at least knew that they weren't going to compete with Pokemon, so they would have to like whatever's going on in between Pokemon. That's what they can capture.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they at least played it pretty like strategic that way, and I mean, you kind of had no choice. Pokemon was out to make every other show their bitch on Saturday, and they did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
You were in Pokemon Prison, and they were making the rules. And wow, wouldn't that be an interesting game? Pokemon Prison.
Oh God.
Like you just go to jail and you're like raising your Pokemon in jail, and like you have to fight, and like you have to do like Pokemon battles with like the different like with like the different gang members, and like as you're going through all the different levels of the prison and all the different cell blocks, you have to fight the guards at the end instead of the gym leaders.
Oh God.
And like eventually you get to the yard and you gotta do like your Pokemon battle with the shot caller.
Oh,
No, actually, yeah, it would be the shot caller, and then you got to go back into the prison to get to the warden, and you have to get but first you have to go through his Elite Four of the top prison guards. So, like, yeah, that would totally make sense. That actually would, holy shit, that would work. Like, just to capture the now grown Pokemon market. Why did they even bother doing Scarlet and Violet? They could have just done Pokemon Prison, and it would have, like, been gangbusters. Someone needs to make a Flash game or a Newgrounds thing of this. Is Newgrounds even still a thing?
I don't actually know.
If you are a developer who has completely lost it, please reach out to us and start making Pokemon Prison, but definitely call it something else.
Yeah.
Because Nintendo will sue you into the ground and possibly us. So
And then
don't
you'll end up in prison.
Yes, don't call us. Don't say you got the idea from us, but just, donate thousands of dollars to the Patreon monthly. Please. But yeah, I think we've got a winner here. Pokemon Prison. You're like, oh my god, it makes all the sense now. You could put it on that island where like Articuno was. Because it's isolated all the way from everything. Actually, no, they could put you in that little square where the missing no are. That would holy crap, this is an idea. This is $1 billion idea. We have to do this. We have to find a way to make Pokemon Prison happen. But we have to call it something else. And we have to get new concept art that doesn't infringe on anything. They can't even go in a Pokeball. It has to be like a square or a prism of something. It's a prism because prism is close to the word prison. Holy shit. This idea keeps getting better and better. I don't even care about Jackie Chan Adventures anymore. But we have to do it. Oh my god! There's a ghost section because prisons are haunted.
Oh god.
Oh my god.
No.
It makes too much sense. They have to do this. Pokemon Prison. Here to ruin your holiday.
It's gonna ruin my life, that's for sure.
Oh my god. Out on parole this Christmas. We're doing it. We're doing it. Pokemon Prison, baby. Anyway. Not in prison is Jackie Chan, who is trying to stop Shendu, who is in a prison of sorts, from getting out of that prison and where Valmont and his syndicate end up getting the talismans. They have to stop the talismans. I mean, eventually they stopped doing the talismans, and that was a problem for the network because kids loved the talismans, or at least the network executives will tell you that. But we've said this before. Most executives really don't know a goddamn thing.
Yeah.
So they might just say, like the ratings might be down for like a new story arc, which I believe in the second season they did complete that and start the next story arc, which brought on James Hong's character and his actual like, he was like an actual sorcerer who wanted that power for himself and wasn't really, he's a little bit concerned with talismans, but not so much once they phase the talismans out, and it becomes more about the Oni masks. So he has to get the Oni masks, and there's like different, like it's varying different artifacts that keeps you hooked onto the show. So either way, Jackie is stuck with collecting artifacts. Mm-hmm. And and Valmont basically like flees and you really don't see him until the last episode where he like gets or like he like is on a bus in disguise and he runs away and like Jackie recognizes him and there's like they like kind of lock eyes but he like doesn't say anything and he just runs away.
Mm-hmm.
And he and they were interested in the Oni mask, so he had to collect the Oni masks and get those powers, etc. And then eventually they returned back to the talismans for the last two seasons when Shendu's son breaks free from his own demon prison realm.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, in the season finale, Shendu they have to actually use the talismans, but the talismans are in animals, so they have to get the animals and talismans, and then there's the and then they get the talismans out of the animals, and then they have them in Syndicate 13, and then Shendu's son has to get them, and then he gets them, and then all hell breaks loose, and then he turns into his final form, which is like a Cthulhu monster, and it's all hell quite literally breaks loose.
Mm-hmm.
Into the San Francisco Dodgers baseball stadium for some reason. And it just all chaos ensues. Big kaiju magic battle with all the bells and whistles. It's actually pretty great. And but anyway, they were concerned with the they stop the talismans and they go to the Oni mess, and network executives will say, "Oh, well, it didn't test well because everyone was obsessed with the talismans, and the kids love the talismans." Which I was a kid, I didn't care as much. I didn't give a shit if it was a talisman or an Oni mask. I just kind of got older and lost interest in the show because that's what happens. I went from being 10 years old to, by the time season 3 happened, about 13 years old.
Yeah.
So I wasn't really watching that many. I was like watching less and less cartoons as I was getting older, just because that's what happens when you get older. And of course, and these idiot executives will not, didn't ever correlate that. Because even if they had children, chances are the nanny is raising the children and not them. So they have no idea what their kids are into because they're too busy making squillions of dollars, and they're not paying attention to anything other than their work, because that's what happens when you're at that level. You're driven by money and work and not really much of anything else. And you kind of lose touch with anything else, which is why you see so many executives that are divorced, because they are just too focused on their work. And anyway, they have enough money to sleep on silk sheets, so I'm not too worried about their situations. This is not a plea for the ultra wealthy. Don't get that twisted, baby. But what I'm saying is these people have no idea what the hell was really going on, and they didn't put two and two together that maybe the people who had started watching this show and were interested in it when they were doing the talismans just happened to get older and just were doing other things.
Yeah.
So there you go. Like maybe they were playing like baseball or something in like a little league or whatever. I was, so I could say that I wasn't home between the hours when Jackie Chan was on, and I wasn't really watching Pokemon as much as I was. Maybe I was probably into Yu-Gi-Oh at that point. So I would watch that, and then I wouldn't really watch too much else. I would watch Yu-Gi-Oh, and if Batman was on, I would watch it, but it wasn't. I really didn't go out of my way for many other cartoons.
I like Jackie Chan Adventures. I would watch it, and especially if I was at my grandmother's house, which I often was on the weekends, especially Saturday mornings and stuff. I would watch it then, because me and my uncle would sit down and watch it because he always watched all the Saturday morning cartoons.
Well, it's not that I would avoid the show. It's just that I simply wasn't.
I'm not saying that.
I wasn't home during those hours. I had things to do. I was a busy 13-year-old.
I was just saying I would happen to catch it because I was at my grandmother's house at the time. So it was just on the TV and we would watch Saturday morning cartoons. So
right. If the show was on, I would watch it.
And then especially when Yu-Gi-Oh became a thing, I was really into Yu-Gi-Oh, so I would religiously watch it on Saturday mornings, and So I would just like I would put on WB11 on Saturday morning just to watch like Yu-Gi-Oh, but like I would just leave it on in the background and like watch whatever was on. So,
Right.
with whether it was Jackie Chan Adventures or like the Mummy TV series, which was pretty good. I mean, it wasn't the greatest thing ever, but it was
But it was
okay.
decent. It did the
Yeah.
job.
Yeah, so it was like,
Like
the
we were just
most
into a little bit more mature viewing, and also video games were starting to get really hot around that point. Like
yeah. Well, that's the thing too.
we were at
I
the
was
dawning
playing
of like yeah, like we were at the dawning of the PS2 era and like the
yes.
Gen 2 and like the next gen consoles. So
Yeah.
like you were playing so like if you were like 13, you were probably if you were like you were probably only watching Yu-Gi-Oh, and then in between Yu-Gi-Oh and not Yu-Gi-Oh, like during the non-Yu-Gi-Oh hours, you were probably playing video games.
Yeah, well, and you know what? At that time too, I started to really get into more like PC gaming.
Yeah.
Because I got a computer, I think for my 13th birthday, or like maybe Christmas when I was 12 or something. I don't remember. And like so like I really started to play PC games a lot more, which was kind of a good thing because I could, like I said, I could put something like I could put WB11 on in the background while I was playing something on my computer. But like, I was really getting into like, like Counter-Strike and StarCraft and like Star Wars Jedi Academy, came out in like 2004, so that was like big for me. And I would just like I would sit and on my computer and play a video game, but then like put on WB in the background and like like I would like pause the video game for a little bit, go watch a little bit of a show, then go where the commercial came on, go back to playing, that kind of thing.
Mm.
So that was like always like a big memory for me too, and I think that's what. And like my friends is like we all watched like WB11 was just like the premier like Saturday morning cartoon. Like I said, like everybody I knew watched like Kids WB, like everybody, and we all like would talk about the shows, and like everybody loved like Jackie Chan Adventures and Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon, and we all like talked about, it was just like that was like what it was like growing up,
Yeah,
for
well,
me.
that was the water cooler talk on Monday, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Was did you watch Yu-Gi-Oh? Did you watch Jackie Chan Adventures? Did you watch Batman? Like, what did you watch on Saturday? And if you didn't watch the shows, then like nobody would talk to you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like, I don't know, it was just it was fun. It was like, and we had went over this before, but like Jackie, I want to bring up again, like the writing was like actually like exceptionally good for Jackie Chan Adventures, and like
Yes.
like one like in particular that always stands out for me, and I still remember to this day, is that like they're like in a chase with, and like the bad at the, throughout like the later parts of the seasons, like the bad guys like started collecting more and more of the talismans, so they would like use them, and like Jackie Chan would use them, and like they would kind of like trade talismans back and forth. Like the bad guys would lose them and Jackie would get the back, and then Jackie would lose them and the bad guys would get them back. So I remember this one particular episode where they're chasing him, and the bad guys have like a bunch of the talismans at this point, and one of the henchmen like they're they're like kind of like divvying out the talismans to everybody, so everyone has different powers. And the one henchman he ends up getting like the talisman for immortality and the talisman for healing. And I remember this so distinctly because it's so freaking like perfectly written, this setup. He basically goes, immortality and healing, that's redundant, so he throws out the healing one and just keeps the immortality one. Well, later on in the episode, while they're chasing Jackie, they're like on top of like a truck speeding down the highway, and like the truck goes into a tunnel, and like so like the guy gets like smashed into the side of a mountain from like because he's standing on top of this truck, and he just falls to the ground like in a crumpled heap of like broken bones. But of course he can't die because he's immortal. But he doesn't have the healing talisman, so he just lays there in agonizing pain. And I just thought it was like, that's like so perfect. The setup for this whole joke, it's like it was just so smart and hilarious the way they did it.
It is like you can appreciate it differently as an adult, and
Yeah.
it hits way differently because I like as a kid I wouldn't really like pay attention to the animation style. I wasn't paying attention to the acting, or well, to the voice acting. I wasn't really I don't even know what I like I think I just kind of cared about the action, similar
Yeah,
to
the
just
fight
watching a
scenes.
Jackie Chan show. I didn't even care
Yeah.
for I thought the talismans were cool, and I thought the Oni masks were cool, but I really didn't care about what the plot device was that he was trying to get.
Yeah.
Executives would have you think otherwise.
I mean, it was basically like they had to have the plot of the talismans and stuff to actually have a show, because otherwise it would have just been
Right.
Jackie Chan doing stunts for like a half hour, which
No,
is
no,
like,
I get that,
you
but
know,
I'm
it's
saying like that. I'm saying I didn't tune in for the talismans
Yeah,
and tune out
exactly.
because they didn't have talismans.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like they just like they did it because they had to do it. You know, it's like
Yeah,
they
but
have to
like
have a plot. You know.
yeah, but like but like just as a kid, I was looking for different things, and now as an adult, I was like, I'm paying a lot more attention to everything else,
Yeah.
and very little to what I was paying attention to as a kid. And I was like, wow, this is actually really, like I said earlier, and like you just said, this is really good writing.
Yeah.
Like the
Yeah.
jokes are set up really well. Like there is like nothing is like, oh, of course, like I'm not groaning with any of the jokes. I'm always like, oh, that was clever.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And
Yeah, they weren't
it's
like
just,
stupid jokes. They were like pretty smart jokes. Like, and you know,
I mean,
not like
this was during a time where the writing for most shows, it was written with the intent that the parents would watch this with their kids, and the
yes.
parents would enjoy it too. So
Yeah.
there would be some jokes that would fly over the kids' heads, but the parents would think that it was hilarious.
Yeah.
And there were some jokes that were like that the kids would laugh a lot harder, and the parents would be like, okay, can we get on with it? But it wasn't a chore for either part. And
Yeah.
it was things that like parents would actually like to watch with their kids. Because I remember sometimes I would say, okay, like my dad would say, hey, let's go play catch, and I would say, okay, fine, but can we please watch, let's say, Jackie Chan Adventures? And my dad would probably say something to the effect of, okay, well, I like Jackie Chan Adventures, so I'll watch it with you, and then we could play catch. And like it was pretty easy for like a win-win.
Yeah.
Or like, Dad, can we watch Goosebumps first? Well, that's a little scary, but yeah, why not? I haven't watched a scary movie in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And like both of you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Which is I think that's coming back in some phases for cartoons, but there was a while where like it was just, I mean, in more recent times it suffered a lot, just the quality of writing, because it's just been like,
Yeah.
we're gonna just throw political commentary and agendas into it that like is gonna age this very badly.
Yeah.
And nobody wants this,
Yeah.
and the kids don't understand it, but we're just gonna do it because we don't have talent. But some shows you're seeing more of like a change back into this direction,
Yeah.
which is really great and refreshing, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it's like really just like a sad state of affairs in this country. The fact that everything has to be politicized now. It's like, because there was a time that you know, growing up, we had
This
cartoons.
time,
Exactly.
specifically,
They didn't have to be
specifically, that's
political
the word.
any way. They were just fun to watch, and that's all that a kid needs. Is something that's fun to watch. They don't have,
Yes.
like, there's no reason you have to inject politics into every single thing, you know, and it's so stupid. And I think it's just because, honestly, I think writers nowadays just don't have any ideas anymore. So it's like that's the only thing they can fall back on, because they know it'll get some kind of like traction and people talking about it just because it's political.
I mean, it's either that or the writers do have good ideas, and the people that they're answering to, or the network
Yes.
executives, are the ones telling them, no, you should do this.
Yeah.
No, you should throw in this. No, you should throw in this joke. Why don't you write a joke about the patriarchy? Why don't you write a joke about this? Why don't you do that? And
Yeah.
like, why don't you throw in these like very right-wing politics into it? Why don't you throw in these very left-wing politics into it? Why don't you do something that turns off half of the audience right away? And then next week, I'll wonder why the ratings are down.
Yeah.
And in 3 months, I'm not really sure why the show's going to be canceled, but keep doing what I'm telling you to do.
Yeah.
So you're like, it could be that the writers are bad. It could also be that their management is awful and has terrible ideas and they're being forced. Two things can be true.
Yes.
Or it could be all of those things, which in that case, there's no saving this program.
No.
But I'm not sure what the situation is. I mean, even now with like Well, I mean, now there is no situation because everyone's striking.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the situation.
Just gotta hope something good comes out of the strike. Maybe like the friggin' like, the big friggin' studios will start to like fucking like just fail, and like a whole new there could be like a rebirth
I
in
mean,
the entertainment industry,
that
and
could
like
happen. I mean, also because like if it is to be believed, sorry to bring up current events. We were hoping to make this episode as timeless as Jackie Chan Adventures, but I guess that's out the window. Thanks
yeah.
for the money, patrons.
Out the window.
It's garbage day all over again. But I mean, it could be an interesting renaissance where the studios like which this whole thing really addresses the wealth disparity more than anything because you have studios who are just willing to just wait it out until like people become homeless and like they're just gonna like sit in their ivory towers and catch a cold while everyone else gets cancer.
Yeah.
So like that addresses how badly the disparity is. But this could lead to a renaissance where people revolt and there becomes like basically a second coming of Hollywood basically where all of these where like these writers and actors that have been like rejected by everything basically and like they end up forming their own like wacky coalition. They all like pool their money together and maybe they get a lot of A-list actors and like writers and production companies that like want that like their like hands are kind of sort of tied at the moment because if they strike then it looks like they're crying poor and if they don't strike then they look like assholes. So what do? And then they just don't, or the ones who are like donating money, like instead of striking they just donate lots of money to these relief funds. Maybe they invest in these like people who seemingly like where it seems like they have to take a bad deal or they're going to be homeless. Maybe there leads to a giant renaissance where they create an alternative Hollywood and these ideas flourish and like well-made things can happen again and we have this whole new era of creativity and all of the AI and technology that all of these big studios invest in fails miserably because it's not there yet where it can just think and create for itself and come up with ideas. It comes up like the ideas and things that it comes up with at the moment is an aggregate of everything out there, but it's not original or it's not original enough
And
to carry its own thing.
I've always felt that even when like AI does, because eventually it's inevitable that AI was going to become advanced enough where it could like write movies and do all this stuff. But you're going to have a market for human made things, and they'll market it as such, like, oh, this is 100% human made. Like
Right.
people will buy it just for the fact that, oh, people actually made this, not AI.
And the human made thing might be a premium price, so they might end up
Exactly.
making more money.
Yes. Yeah.
Because if anybody, because the thing about AI is going to be anybody can access it. I mean, right now anybody can access it for like $20 a month or something like that. You can use the top Chat GPT thing, and who cares? You could do all your like art and all of your like video stuff or whatever, and okay, you pay the subscription fee and like you have access to everything, but like who cares? Everybody else has access to the same thing. So like how original can it possibly be? And like original is really just going to be weird. You're just going to try to make it as weird as it is, and then it's going to be this oversaturation of like blandness. So it really like doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it's going to work unless Skynet happens and then then every man for himself. But and woman and child and everyone else, everyone in between, all creeds and all colors and all species for themselves. There you go. And I don't know. I guess that could be it. But who the hell knows? I really don't. I kind of just hope that I really just hope that like all of these like douchey studios fall flat on their faces and like something really awesome comes out of this and we get really great creative content again and we get great cartoons like this with smart and funny writing
Yeah.
and no politics or agendas thrown in and we just get timeless masterpieces again and we get like a new era of awesomeness.
Yeah, and it goes to show that you could make something that's somewhat derivative but also original. Because like that's another problem with everything that's coming out now is that everything is a derivative of something. It's like it's all franchise shit. There's no like original ideas and how like Oppenheimer and the Barbie movie are like the first two original ideas in Hollywood in like years, basically.
Yeah.
That are not franchises essentially. Like, okay, yeah, the Barbie is based off of like the toy line, obviously, but it's like its own unique thing. It's not like based off of like some specific book or TV show or something, And the Oppenheimer movie is the same thing. It's like, it's its own thing, and yeah, okay, like Jackie Chan Adventures, it's based off of Jackie Chan, but it's not like based off of one of his movies. It's just like its own thing on its own. It just happens to be like centered around Jackie Chan. But
Right.
like it's a completely original idea, and that's like it would be nice to have stuff like that again, and especially stuff that like, yeah, you could use like a famous like well-known like thing, actor or person, or base it on something well-known, but still make it original and not friggin' derivative like everything else is.
Right.
So, that would be nice to see something like along those lines, and maybe like, again, the strike and everything, and people will be inspired by Oppenheimer and Barbie and make their own kind of like, start making their own like shit, that's actually like good and like original.
It might be. I mean, I hope I hope for the same thing. I
Yeah.
hope for the same thing, and it would just be wild if we get an alternative. If we just get an alt Hollywood, and it's
Yeah.
just like its own like separate industry, divorced from what the entertainment business has become, and is like and it's a better version. So who the hell really knows? But getting back to Jackie Chan Adventures, we get into all these other things like demon portals and the demon chi and the Oni masks, and then we go back to the talismans, but the talismans are in animal spirits, and they like it's just kind of neat. And they also did care about the archaeology too. Like in one of the later seasons, they're in Mexico and it's an El Toro Fuente episode, and they're in Mexico looking for the rat talisman, and they find this tomb, and it's the tomb slash pyramid that's been like buried for all these years, and it's the tomb of Quetzalcoatl, the Aztec god of the sun, and the rat statue it gives movement to the to the immobile. So like it's in this specific rat, and it gives life to it animates the Quetzalcoatl statue, and he thinks that they're all like other gods because only other gods could really see him. So, but for some reason, the statue can fly and has all the magic powers, which that I really don't understand. But I don't really care. It's a cartoon, but it's magic, and that's nice. And they and like the fact that they cared enough to put actual like history in there, and they wrote in the explanations of the god of this of like everything. Like it wasn't like the statue comes to life and they're like, oh, it's Quetzalcoatl. What's he doing here? And
Yeah.
like there's no explanation to like what he is or why we should care. They're like, who, like they find the statue and they're like, whoa, what's that? And he's like, oh, it's Quetzalcoatl. He's the Aztec god of the sun, and he was the ruler of he was like the main god that all the people worshipped, and he like had the body of this he had the body of a human, but he had the wings of the wings of an eagle, and the and the head of a snake, and it was like, and they like interpret all the different meanings for all that stuff, and it was really neat to see. And then he thinks that El Toro Fuente is the god of the underworld because of the mark, because of the symbol on his mask is like bears a resemblance to it, and he thinks that it's horns of like demon horns, and they have to explain to him that he's not that, and he almost like wipes them out, and then he thinks that Jade is like his like the reincarnation of his long lost love, who was a goddess, because she bears a resemblance to her. So it's like, but they explain all of these things. It isn't just like one line. So and like in other episodes where like they'll explain relics like throughout, and a lot of them will be based on in reality. So it's really nice to see that extra care that they put into this.
Yeah.
But this show also, like, not only did it run for 93 episodes, and it aired in more than 60 countries, which was crazy.
Yeah.
It brought Jackie Chan to a whole new audience.
Yes.
And I think that's probably what opened the door for him to do more children's movies in the mid to later 2000s.
Yeah, like Around the World in 80 Days.
Correct, and the Tuxedo and other movies like that.
He was in Kung Fu Panda, I believe, also.
Yes, he was. I mean, he also he also was like the voice of the Emperor in Mulan, I believe, or Mushu, one of those two in the Chinese version.
Yeah.
But he, like, the guy is a legend, and this brought him into a whole new thing. But also, like, they rolled out they gave this thing the works. Like, they didn't just have the show. They also had comic books, which I do sometimes remember seeing the comic books in the shop. I didn't buy the Jackie Chan comic books. Maybe I had one. I can't remember if I ever had one, but I don't think I did. But I remember seeing them when I would go get like a Sonic comic book.
Yeah.
Or a Spider-Man comic book with my dad. We spoke about this in the Sonic episode.
Yeah.
But you would see they had Jackie Chan comics. They also had Jackie Chan, like, little like children's books and things like that. And I would see that in the Scholastic book newsletter thing that we would get at school when I would buy my Calvin and Hobbes books. We talked more at length about that in the Calvin and Hobbes episode. But it also spawned a couple of video games too. They did a game for the Game Boy Advance known as Jackie Chan Adventures: Legend of the Dark Hand. It's the Dark Hand, sorry, not the Black Hand. Black Hand is actually the name of the leader of the Black Lanterns in the Green Lantern in the Blackest Night series comics, which is the best Green Lantern storyline. Brightest Day is not so good. But Blackest Night is awesome. And that actually got me back into comic books after like a 10-year hiatus. And I collected, I'm proud to say that I collected every issue in the Blackest Night series, including issue number 0, which was a free comic book day issue. That's 80 issues, 81 if you include issue number 0. I don't have all the variant covers. That is a quest I can't undertake because there's just too goddamn many variants, and only like one of them is even worth anything of each thing. Anyway, so you get the comic book series, you get the video games, which the Legend of the Dark Hand for Game Boy Advance, and you also get Jackie Chan Adventures for the PS2. I've never played that game. I've
never either. It was after.
I don't know how good it is.
It came out at a time where, like, again, I was getting more interested in more mature games like Grand Theft Auto and, like stuff like that. Call of Duty, like, the original Call of Duty and Call of Duty 2 came out around. So, like, I wasn't really interested. If it came out when I was like 10 or like 9, I probably would have been interested in it. But like it came out when like we were in high school already, I think, and I was on to more mature games by that point, So I never really gave it any.
It came out in 2001. We just didn't care. We just didn't care about it because we weren't interested in that.
I think the PS2 version came out in 2004 or 2005.
Well, it's two different games.
Yeah. Well. Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like the Dark Hand one. Well, what I'm seeing is the Jackie Chan Adventures one came out. The PS2 one came out in 2001.
Oh, it
Um,
did.
the Oh, they both might have. Okay. No, you're right. The PS2 game came out in 2004. The Game Boy Advance one came out in 2001. Excuse
Okay.
me. But I never played this.
See, I did.
Apparently this
I
didn't apparently neither of them got they seem to be decent games actually. The Metacritic scores are both 75 out of 100 for the GBA and the PS2. So, and across the board it's between 3 and 4 stars, like 7.5, like a 7 to an 8. GameSpy gave it an 83. It's really not okay. Well, the PlayStation Magazine gave the PS2 game a 3 out of 10, but
everywhere else gave it good grades.
everywhere else gave it pretty good grades. So I'm almost curious to
Oh, but
listen.
you know what? It looks like the game. Oh no, the Metacritic score for the PS2 version is 75, so that's
Yeah,
not bad.
I'm almost curious to actually play this thing.
Yeah, I mean, I remember seeing the PS2 version in the store, but I just never like bought it because
No, I have. I know I've seen. I know I saw it in the
I
store. I
never
just
knew
never
about the Game
bought it.
Boy Advanced version. I didn't know there was a Game Boy Advanced game of it. See, that's why I might have actually picked it up when it came out if I had known about it, because that seems like more of like a thing that I would have played kind of back then. But yeah, the PS2 version, I remember at that point I was already like kind of over it, so it was like it wasn't for me.
I mean, you could probably pick it up really cheap.
Oh, I'm sure, because
I
I'm sure
would.
it's
I
not
would
like
like to think.
yeah.
Yeah. You know what? What does this go for? Uh. Hmm. Nope. It keeps giving me the damn seasons. I don't want the seasons.
Oh
I
yeah.
want the video game. Here we go. Uh, Currently unavailable. Well, that doesn't help me. I mean, I don't actually want to buy this. I just want to know how much it is.
Gotta look on eBay or something for it,
Yep.
probably.
Yeah, let's see eBay.
It's interesting because the graphic style actually like really mirrors the show very well. So that's pretty interesting the way they did it. I'm just watching a short clip right now of it just to see what it was all about. The graphics are actually not bad for the time. It's almost got like kind of like
Holy
cel
crap,
shading.
this is actually more than I thought.
Really?
Well, the PAL UK version is going for 40 for about like $40 through $60. In who graded this? Some jackass graded this and wants $650 for it.
If
It's a
it's a rare
9
game, I
point.
could see that. There's a lot of like random like rare games like that just are like were like low print when they originally came out and are like super rare now, so they are expensive because of that.
Doesn't look like it's this one. I'm seeing it like, okay, it seems like the version that you have will determine whether the like how much it is. The Italian version is $14. The between yeah, it's like 14.21. All right, yeah, here's the American version. It's $25, so more than I expected it to be, but like not as like not definitely not as expensive as the jackass who got it graded thinks that it's worth.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this, you should probably just take it out of the box and just play it because no one's going to buy that for $650.
Someone might.
Well, I don't think that well they
People that are
shouldn't.
like completionists that just want like every game ever released for a console will get it.
Well, they're gonna realize that this thing is not worth $650 when they go on eBay and look and see all of the other versions that are $40 at the cap. It is $58. It's
Yeah.
59 from the UK, free shipping. That's how much it is at the peak. At the trough, you're looking at like $15. Oh, I'm sorry, I lied. Someone wants to sell the French version for 65.84,
Oh God.
but I wouldn't buy that one.
No.
Just get the PAL one for $14 and you're good. The Game Boy Advance version is going for like $15 or less. Yeah, there's like another bundle 5 to 13 where like you just choose the game of 6. It's anyway, it doesn't matter. There's like you could get the game for whatever price you want. What the hell is Jackie Chan Stuntmaster? That is going for $70. That's a PS1 game. I've never heard of this.
I've never heard of that one.
It sounds weird. It looks like there's the Twin Towers silhouette on the disc. I don't know why.
It looks like Hong Kong 97.
I guess. I don't know. Midway designed it, so something that has something to do with it. Anyway, wait. I didn't know they made a billion minute game. Okay, I gotta get off of this. I'm going down a rabbit hole that I'm not too sure I want to stay in.
No.
But yeah, this show, the Jackie Chan Adventures show really went farther than it probably should have, gone, and they put way too much effort into it than you would expect for a children's series to have. But the show had legs. It was really well done, and it has stood the test of time. Like, I found it to be better as an adult. I actually wanted to keep watching it.
Yeah, I was watching it earlier today and I was like actually invested in it. I was like, wow, this is actually like way better than I remember. Like I was not expecting it. I thought I was like, oh man, I'm probably looking back on this show with rose-colored glasses. It's probably really not that good, but I was like pleasantly surprised. Like I was into it and I was like, oh, I could sit down and watch this again.
Yeah.
So that was cool.
Yeah, I liked it. It had
Yeah.
a good voice cast too, and I was like, just in general,
Yeah.
it was a good show.
It was a good show.
Like, it was a good show. It did way more than what it needed to do,
yeah.
and like Jackie Chan got into a different market that way. So, everybody won because it was done right.
Yeah.
So that's really all that I got to say about that.
Yep.
But I guess that concludes episode 99.
99.
99.
Next episode 100. Stay tuned.
Oh boy. Well, thanks again, everybody. We hope that you enjoyed this show, and we hope that you learned something today. And if you didn't learn anything, well, that's fine. You're probably an American because we're American and we don't learn anything anymore. We are incapable of learning, actually. Our whole society is based on us becoming stupid and continuing to get stupider. And that's not even a word. See, my intelligence and IQ have dropped just 7 points from this episode alone.
All right.
So,
well,
here we go. Yes. One day, scientists will use my brain and study it, and they will say, how was this person able to function with an IQ that low? I don't understand it. His age and IQ were the same number, and both things were under 100. Well, this has been Why Does This Exist? I've been Chris.
And I've been Rob.
And remember, question everything.
Good night, everybody.